Hi gossipers, how are you? I hope you're well. Now let's get into this story cause the tea is boiling hot. Now our first story is trigger warning for sexual harassment, child neglect, and sexism. Please skip it if it triggers you. Your mental health matters more. Me, 21 female, with the family I nanny for. The son's 13 male, behavior is starting to creep me out, but I'm not sure if it actually is inappropriate or just a cultural difference. Posted by you/nanny throw. October 10, 2016. Hey there, using a throwaway just in case. So I am from the US and recently moved to Italy to nanny. I feel this is important because so far I have not been able to tell if I'm struggling with a cultural difference here in Italy or if I actually have reason to be weirded out. It is easy to tell that the son Dario is in middle school, as he is already several inches taller than me and his mom, and has maybe 30 lbs on me. When I first got here, some of the stuff that freaked me out a little I could handle and I chalked it up to being an Italy thing. This includes stuff like talking almost exclusively in a baby voice when addressing his parents, calling his parents mommy and daddy, fighting physically with his little sister over who gets to sit on mom and dad's lap multiple times throughout the day, fighting with the sister over who gets to sleep with the parents, getting extremely upset when mom or dad leaves for the day, and whining about not getting enough kisses, or time laying in bed kissing with mom, and having his parents blow on chewed food in his mouth because it's too hot. Now, I really don't want to be critical of this, if it's normal here, you know? But in the US, I seriously can't imagine a single 7th grade boy engaging in any of these behaviors, so it's really new to me. And really, it hadn't affected me, so I just let it be. The problem is, though, that now I'm starting to get involved, and it's making me really uncomfortable. For example, our rooms have adjacent windows which allows the kids to see into my entire room at all times. To me, this is pretty inappropriate. What am I supposed to do when I need to change clothes? But I also don't want to seem like I am sexualizing children or accusing them of anything. So I just politely asked for curtains and took to changing in the bathroom. After weeks without curtains, the family finally promised me that someone was coming to put them up. Well, he only put them in the kids' room. Ever since then, I find Dario peeping through the curtains at me multiple times a day. Now I'm sure he is just checking on me or curious about what I'm up to, but it makes me so uncomfortable. I didn't want to tell the family though because I'm afraid they would think I was accusing their baby of trying to spy on me changing, so I just took matters into my own hands and hung a blanket up over my window. Another issue has been when we stay at the kids' grandparents' house. There is a room for the parents, with a bed for one child, and a room for me with a bed for one child. I figured we would split up boys and girls, and I would stay with the daughter, but nighttime rolls around and Dario is crawling into the bed next to mine. I was so uncomfortable I could hardly sleep. I have talked to my friends at home about this and they all think it's really weird because we aren't related and he's a teenager now. But this is of course an American opinion, so I can't tell for sure if we're imposing our ideas on this family. Again, if this is really a cultural thing though, I don't know how to tell the family that where I am from. It's kind of inappropriate for a boy so old to be sleeping next to me, especially when he's been spying on me lately without causing issues. Of course, these behaviors affect other aspects of our life as well, as it is hard to get Dario to do anything because he usually claims it's too hard to do. Making a bed at 13 too hard? Are you kidding? And I often find myself wanting to tell him to grow up. What I need help with is knowing whether he does need to grow up or if all this behavior is normal here and I am the crazy American that needs to adjust. Is this behavior normal for a 12-year-old? Or is it immature? I feel like the parents still really see him as a young child. And usually he acts like it. But for the most part, it seems like he plays up the baby act because he knows it makes his parents cater to him more. If this all is abnormal, does anyone have any suggestions about how to bring this up to the family? Edit. Just want to clarify that at the grandparents' house there are two beds, and they are next to each other. Dario was not in my bed but in the bed next to mine. The freaky says. It's normal behavior for a spoiled 13-year-old. Of course most adolescents would want to peek at you through the curtains. The problem is the parents, they have to stop that shit right now. Don't you have authority as a nanny to scold him? I'm Spanish, we have a very similar culture to Italy, and that shit is inappropriate. The parents are educating a horrible child that will grow up to be an asshole that thinks the world should cater to him. OP says. Oh my goodness, the relief I am feeling right now to know that this isn't normal. So far I have not particularly felt like I have much authority because the times I would scold him, the parents are sitting right there, and how can I reprimand him in front of his own parents? I didn't include this in the post, but he is already showing major signs of being an asshole. He is always so rude, critical and ungrateful. Every meal I make he has something to insult about it. He treats his little sister like SIT, even though she is a doll and often acts more mature than him. And he loves ordering me around and telling me what I'm doing wrong. It drives me up the wall. Someone call 186 says. We've established this kid's behavior is weird, but WTF at the parents responding to your request for privacy/curtains by giving them to the child? OP says, I have no clue, they've been really weird about some stuff. Like, This is TMI, but the mom knew I was on my period because I had to ask her where to buy tampons here. And we get to the house, and there's no trash can in the bathroom or in my room. I asked for one multiple times, and she said she would get one, and never did. And when I asked last, she said, well, the kids have a trash can in their room, if you need it, like WTF. Are you not an adult woman? Do you not understand how this works? OP answer some questions. I asked about discipline when I interviewed, and they said they don't really have to discipline the kids. I should have taken it as a warning sign. Honestly, the mom is very strict about some stuff, so they're very good in certain areas that she deems important etiquette, cleanliness. But when Dario picks on the daughter, they just let the kids yell and scream and cry until I step in. They also seem to encourage many of Dario's rude comments because technically he does word them politely. For example, I will bust my ass making a meal for the whole family. To be kind and helpful, it is not in my job description. And Dario will eat 4 plates of it and then say, I'm sorry, but why would you cook this like that? And I'll say, that's how we cook it in the US, and he'll say, well, I didn't like it. The Italian way is much better, and then put his plate on mine for me to take it to the kitchen and leave. No thanks for cooking, no, but I did like this part. Just insult clean my plate, bye. He loves to criticize. Child autistic? I thought about the autism initially, but I'm fairly certain it isn't that. Because when his parents are gone, the baby act completely turns off, and he acts like any other teenager, albeit manipulative and critical I have ever known, and I have worked in childcare, in the classroom, and as a coach for years now. Update February 6, 2017. 4 months later. Hi all, I'm back. Yes, how long has it been? 3-4 months later with an update. Long story short, I quit. Here's the long version for those interested. The curtain issue. Like I said in my last post, I had just hung a blanket for privacy, and since then there have been no peeping issues. I asked 2 more times for curtains and was reassured both times that the curtain man would come to hang them in my room. He did come back once and hung more curtains in the kids' room, but again not in mine. Then I was told that they didn't like him and would be finding another curtain guy to hang my curtains. It's been 4 months, no more mention of it. I still use the blanket. The vacation issue. I have simply refused to go on vacation with them. I'm off on weekends and I've reached a point where I just refuse to be home for the entire weekend and manage not to see them from Friday night until Monday morning if I can help it. I go on weekend trips, crash on couches, sneak into my room when they're eating, things like that just to avoid seeing anyone on my days off. The Dario issue. Dario still acts extremely maturely. I've warmed up to him a lot, and I've figured out how to cut his rudeness and such. He's become a lot more positive and kind, especially because his mom has been gone a lot and he's with me every day. I'm very upbeat, and have worked really hard to get him to socialize and speak kindly. Unfortunately, he seems to have almost regressed in terms of the childish behavior. He still sits on laps, kisses a lot, and sleeps with a parent when the other is gone. The baby talk is constant. For example, he loves to repeat back butchered syllables of words, if that makes sense. Like his dad will say, Pasami un cucchiaio, pass me a spoon, and he will clap and exclaim, Ayo, or voy del aqua. Do you want water? And he'll go, Qua qua. He also has started eating kind of like a baby too, like he'll take the remaining tomato sauce that we used on pasta and use the giant spoon to drink it out of the pot and get it all over his face, and then suck on each of his fingers. But when I look at his parents, they're looking at him like when you see a cute baby trying to use a fork and getting food on his face. But he's 13, so it's honestly sickening to watch and listen to. He won't lock the door when he goes to the bathroom or showers. Why, I started locking the door when I was like 7, and he even cried the other day when his sister sat on the foot of his bed. He doesn't like things touching his bed. And guess what? The parents got mad at the daughter, said it was her fault for baiting him. She just had to tie her shoe for a second, and declared that it's her fault. Dario will be upset all night. He also hasn't made any progress with friends, and has taken to playing League of Legends, so he won't leave his room, or do any activities, or lessons with me or the sister. It's pretty sad, honestly. The hardest part of this whole thing has been the mother. I won't even go into it here, but she's honestly clinically insane, and I feel so bad for all the people in this house that have to put up with her. She's just a power-hungry, jealous, bitter woman who needs to see a professional. Basically, I went home for Christmas to be with my friends and family and realized how bad this experience was for my health. I was going out, drinking almost every night to escape the house. I was sleeping horribly because I knew she was here and her presence gave me awful anxiety. I was getting yelled at every day, even when I did nothing wrong. I was at home in the States and the thought of going back made me absolutely miserable. So, when I came back, I told them I needed to go back early for medical reasons. Not totally untrue, and now I'm set to leave the last week of March. They found a new girl. Look out for her post here sometime in the future. I'm so glad she's getting out of the house. The son's behavior is not okay. It's so sad for the little girl too. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. The next story is trigger warning, bullying, racism and sexism. If needed, use the timestamps to skip it. Would I be the asshole? My lab partner kept making fun of me for being short, female 20, so I called him 22 male short and he got mad. Posted by Silly Register 732. October 25, 2024. I'm a 5'1" female and my lab partner constantly makes fun of me for being short. For example, I came back from the bathroom and he said, "I thought you fell in the toilet because you're so tiny." He also said that my hair is so big it makes my head and me look even more tiny. I am not insecure about my height, nor does making fun of it offend me. But it's annoying and ironic because he's short too, looks 5'5/6. And yes, I know it might be because he's interested in me, but I don't find him attractive, so the teasing isn't cute. It's just very, very annoying. Last lab, I had enough of it and basically told him to shut up because he's like 5'5". He said he's not 5'5" and he's 5'9". I know, I am very short, but he is definitely not over 5'7". We started arguing about it, so I told him I'll bring a measuring tape next class and we'll find out the truth. I started to feel a bit bad after, because I know men are very insecure about their height. However, him obviously lying about his height and constantly making fun of me makes me in the mood to be petty. Will bringing the measuring tape make me the asshole? OP responded some comments. Commenter says, "Not the asshole, he's finally found someone shorter than him and it makes him feel superior. If he can't take it, he shouldn't dish it out." OP says, "Do you think me bringing the measuring tape will make me the asshole?" Commenter says, "Not the asshole. Bring in the measuring tape and a big black Sharpie. Don't say a word to him. Go to the doorframe and mark 4, 5 and 6. Between the 5 and 6 foot marks, place the inches. Remember how parents used to measure kids' heights against the wall for doorframe and leave marks for little Susie is so tall on October 31st and Ben is so tall the same date. Don't say another word to him. Just leave the measuring marks so he has to look at them every day as he passes by the chart. Keep direct eye contact with him whenever he walks by it." OP says, I'm rolling with laughter. Thank you for this idea. I'm definitely going to do this. I was planning on just measuring him, but the marks on the wall would be more accurate. I don't know if I would be allowed to draw on the wall with Sharpie though. I may do it with a washable marker instead. Commenter says, "No, the asshole. He shouldn't dish it if he can't take it, but I don't know that it'd help to escalate with the tape if you'll still need to work with him." Can you switch partners? OP says, "No, I can't switch my partner. This is my assigned partner for the rest of the semester. Thankfully, I only have 3 classes left." Adds a bit more from his bullying. "I'll tell you what I told the other person who said the same thing. To clarify, he also said, I thought you fell in the toilet because you're so tiny. When I got back because it took a while. He also said my hair is so big it makes my head and me look even more tiny. To add on, he repeatedly calls me shorty or brings up my race saying my people are usually short. When I try to ignore him, he just keeps repeating the same thing to annoy me and get a reaction. I love being short, so there's nothing to be sensitive about. It's him being annoying and making these comments to someone he barely knows, all the while he's also very short. That bothers me. Oh, and I'm bringing the tape." Edit same post later that day. OP adds a link from a tape from Amazon. "I am planning to bring this 10 feet measuring tape, cut it at 7 feet and taping it to the wall next to us before he gets there. Can't wait. I will update how it goes by Tuesday night. My class is Tuesday morning." Update, October 30, 2024. 5 days later. I got to class late because of traffic, so I didn't have time to tape it up. Also, there is no actual wall beside me, so nowhere I could really tape it. But I still measured him. I whipped my tape measure out and they started laughing at first, because everyone knew what was about to go down. Before I measured him, he asked me what the margin of error is and said, "That thing is 2-3 inches off." We both knew he lied at this point, lol. But I insisted to measure him, and at first he didn't want to get measured. I told him to take his shoes off. He said he didn't want to. I said I'm subtracting an inch from the measurement then. He was 5'7", with the shoes on, so without them he's actually a little less. Even after I clearly measured him, he kept denying it, saying it's wrong. That I measured him wrong, and the tape measure is incorrect. He then looked up. How tall is 67 inches? Because he kept saying that must not be 5'7". I couldn't believe he kept denying it, even though I clearly just measured him. His friend in the lab group across from us is about the same height as him, and also lied about his height last time. So, he was embarrassed too, because they both were obviously lying. I made a joke about how the top 2 inches must be invisible, and he wasn't too happy. Our lab TA, 6'2", came over and asked what the measuring tape was for. I told him it was to measure his height, pointing to my lab partner. I said he lied, and the TA started laughing too. Next week, I'm thinking of just taping the measuring tape at the door before class so they're always reminded of it when they walk in. There's really nothing more I can do. We both know he lied even if he doesn't admit it. I guess he should have thought about that before bullying her. What are your thoughts? Share them with us. Our final story is, am I the asshole? Because I didn't invite my father to my wedding, because years ago, he told me I was no longer part of his family. Posted by u/swordcat, October 14, 2024. I'm 28 female, and will be getting married next month. I didn't invite my father to the wedding, but now he's trying to get in touch. I think I need to explain the context, because it all started when I was 6 years old, when my parents got divorced after my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmother. After that, I spent most of my time with my mom, but during holidays and vacations, I stayed with my dad. When I was 8, my half brother Jake, 20 male, was born, and whenever I was with my dad, I was forced to take care of him. When I started high school, I had to move in with my dad because my mom had to move abroad for work. This period was one of the hardest of my life. My stepmother wasn't a bad person. She tried to include me in things, but she was very submissive to my father. As for my dad, he always treated me like an extra in the house, someone who didn't really belong there. I was constantly responsible for taking care of Jake, and whenever he went out, he would only take my stepmother and Jake, never inviting me. One of the most painful experiences happened when I was 14. My dad announced that the whole family was going to Disney for vacation, but the day before the trip he told me that he wanted it to be a family moment, their first big trip with Jake. So, I was left home alone. This had already become a pattern. Trips to the beach, zoos, or other outings always included just my stepmother and Jake, while I was left behind. My dad didn't like me going out with friends or inviting them over. He said, teenagers together only cause trouble. And because he was controlling, he would call the house phone at random times to check if I was home. He also had a trusted neighbor who would keep an eye on me to make sure I didn't have any visitors. When I turned 16, living with him, the feeling of being an extra only got worse. Everything I had experienced during vacations, the exclusion and sense of abandonment, became part of my daily life. Things came to a head when I turned 18. My dad got a promotion at work and decided to take a family trip to Europe. Since it was my last year of high school, I was excited, thinking I'd finally be included. But then he told me he didn't have enough money for a trip for four, so it would just be to celebrate Jake's 10th birthday. I had to stay home. That's when I snapped. I told him he was being unfair and that he shouldn't have given me false hope. I explained how I'd felt over the past years, and he called me ungrateful and spoiled, saying that I lived with him rent-free. Which was a lie since my mom sent money to support me and I did all the housework because both he and my stepmother worked late. The argument escalated, and he kicked me out of the house, saying I was no longer part of the family and not even his daughter. He literally threw me out and tossed my things onto the sidewalk. Luckily, a friend lived nearby and I stayed at her place that night. The next day, I went back to see if my dad had calmed down, but I found my things still on the sidewalk, and some even in the trash. My stepmother had kindly saved a few items for me and handed them over. After that, my dad never reached out, except to call and yell at me a month later when my mom stopped sending him money for my expenses. Months later, I got into an engineering program in another state, where I met my now fiancé, Mark, 29 male. He was a senior and we soon connected, realizing we had a lot in common. We started dating, graduated, and now work in the same field, though at different companies. A few months ago, Mark proposed, and I happily said yes. I have social media, but I rarely use it. I've had Instagram for about 6 years but haven't even posted 10 pictures. I think one of my relatives must have told my dad about the wedding because, about a month after I accepted the proposal, he reached out to me through Instagram, saying he was excited to help with the wedding. I was surprised, both that he had messaged me and that he genuinely thought he would walk me down the aisle. I responded saying he wouldn't be walking me down the aisle because my stepfather would, and that the wedding would be small, just for my close family. After that, I blocked him. After blocking him, and inspired by reading Reddit stories, I expected calls, messages, and even letters full of insults like ungrateful or spoiled. However, the only thing I received was a letter delivered by Jake. Yes, we still have contact. In the letter, my father expressed how sorry he was. I won't copy the exact words, but to summarize. He said that, after kicking me out, he lived a normal life with my stepmother and Jake. But when he saw pictures of my graduation with my mom and stepfather, he started feeling regret. He wanted to talk to me, but his pride held him back. He only decided to reach out now because he realized that his pride got him nowhere, and that he wanted to fulfill one of the plans he made when I was born. To pay for my wedding and walk me down the aisle. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I've moved on with my life, and his attempt at redemption after so many years feels a bit too convenient. Am I the asshole for not wanting to include my dad in my wedding, despite his apology? Note: My stepfather is an amazing person. He always goes out of his way to include me in everything, and my stepsisters are wonderful as well. When he found out that my father hadn't taken me to Disney, he planned a trip for the next holiday and took me, along with my mother and sisters. This and 1,000 other reasons why I want to walk down the aisle with him. Edit 1. People are asking why my mom and stepfather left me with my dad, and what their jobs are. My mom works as a programmer and managed to get a job abroad. She thought it was best to accept it, especially since she wanted to save up a good amount of money to cover college expenses and for the future. My stepfather is a researcher and was doing his postdoctoral work at the time. The first person to talk to me was my older sister, stepsister. 2 days after I was kicked out, she came to see me and even stayed for a few days, which I can barely remember because I was just crying. But I didn't move in with her because she lives in another state, and I was almost done with classes and final exams. So, my friend and bridesmaid let me stay at her house. Her parents helped me gather my things and even set up the guest room for me. Relevant comments. Not the asshole. Your bio father's regrets are his problem, not yours. Your real father, your stepfather, the man who treated you as a father should, is the one who should walk you down the aisle. That other guy is just a bad memory to put behind you. Commenter says, bio father treated OP like a pet he didn't want. Stepfather treated OP like his third daughter. Commenter says, bio father multiple times deliberately excluded OP from family trips. Stepfather went out of his way to include OP in trips. Commenter says, bio father kicked OP out of his house yet still expected to be paid. Stepfather did not act like a douchebag. Commenter says she should use his exact words from when he wouldn't take her anywhere. I want this to be a family moment, just like Disney. Similar experience here. My stepfather walked me down the aisle, and nobody from Biodad's family was invited. Commenter says, I told my stepfather that the only step in stepfather was the part where he stepped up and treated and loved me as a real father should. Commenter says, your sperm donor gets to live with the consequences of his own actions. Update. 4. 1 day later, I'm back with an update and using a different account because the original post was from my friend's account. I'm not active on social media and didn't expect much attention. So I used my friend account. She encouraged me to post my own to get neutral opinions, and I received way more feedback than expected. Now, regarding the comments. I want to thank everyone for helping me see things I hadn't noticed before, especially in how my dad's letter was written. For those wondering, yes, he mostly talked about his feelings and how he felt. Very little was said about me, and even less was about apologizing. He also mentioned how I'm his only daughter, while my stepfather has 2 daughters to walk down the aisle, but he only has me. For those asking why I didn't move abroad with my mom and stepfather, they were supposed to be away for 3 to 5 years, with my mom likely needing to change companies every year. My stepfather was also deep in his research, so their lives were pretty unstable. At the time, I didn't anticipate how much I'd suffer, or that I'd be kicked out. I think the rare times I spent with my dad and the feeling of being left behind would fade whenever I was with my mom and stepfather. This cycle became my routine, which is why I stayed with my sperm donor. And for those asking if my mom knew what was going on, I only told her about the Disney incident. I didn't want to bring issues from one home into another. Now for the update. For some background on my mom, she returned 2 years after I started college, and my real dad came back a year after that. It was my sisters who attended my high school graduation. My mom now lives 2 hours away, so I went to visit her to discuss what had happened, and to get her and my stepfather's thoughts on the situation. My mom said it was something I had to decide on my own, and that she wouldn't interfere. My stepfather told me he'd help pay for the wedding, regardless of what I chose to do. Yes, he's helping with some expenses. My sisters, on the other hand, share the same opinion as most of you. Not to invite him and to send him a letter detailing everything I went through. My older sister, let's call her Lisa, was the most against inviting him. Lisa was the first person to check on me. Today, I learned that on the same day she came to see me at my friend's house, she also stopped to talk to my dad. She hadn't mentioned it before because, according to her, he only spouted nonsense, and sharing it at the time would have just made things worse for me. That's why she's completely against me reconnecting with him. For those curious about what he said, she didn't go into details but mentioned that it angered her so much she ended up shouting at him, calling him every name under the sun. She thinks this may be one of the reasons he didn't reach out sooner. She thinks that added fuel to the fire. We talked a lot, not just about my dad but about myself as well. I realized that even with the therapy I went through during college, there was something important I hadn't done. I never truly opened up to my parents. I always thought I had to face and overcome everything alone. All I did, though, was bottle everything up. Today I was finally able to unpack it all and share my feelings. After a lot of tears, I hugged them both. And here's what I've decided. Everyone. I will respond to his letter. Unfortunately for Mark and Lisa, it won't be the harsh response they were hoping for. I'll take some of your advice and express how I felt when he kicked me out. I'll be polite but honest. I'll also let him know that my stepfather will walk me down the aisle because that's what I want. I won't offer further explanations to him. After all, this is my wedding with Mark, and it will be exactly how we want it, without the need for justifications. 2. I will not accept any money from him, nor will I send him an invitation. If my dad truly wants to reconcile, he can reach out to me through Jake. But only after the wedding, or honeymoon, and it will be on my terms. 3. As someone suggested, we're going to hire security for the wedding, no matter how my dad reacts. For those wondering, yes, Jake has been invited. As I mentioned, we still have a good relationship, and he's allowed to take photos. Relevant comments. Well done. He doesn't deserve anything, but you can be a bit harsh in your letter. Even brutally honest. That's what he deserves. Commenter says, yes, please, be very direct about what he put you through. Commenter says, I tell him that he very explicitly told you that you were not family, so now, in fact, your stepdad has 3 daughters. And he has known. If he's not around for your hard times, he can't be around for your good times. Simple as that. He is narcissist scum, don't let him back into your life. He'll only bring chaos. Commenter says, I was going to post the same thing. He specifically said that OP was not his daughter, so why on earth would she have any motivation to reconnect? Good luck with everything. I hope your wedding day goes beautifully. Commenter says, these kind of people always want to be invited for the big events because they think they deserve the recognition, and do T want to be embarrassed by people asking about their absence. But truthfully, if this was about a genuine reconciliation, he'd do it on a regular day, not start making demands to be included in your wedding day. Glad OP has a good support system. The dad was really wrong. I hope her wedding goes well. But what do you think about this story? Comment down below. That's all for today's video. If you love to hear Reddit stories, please don't forget to subscribe and click the like button below. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time on Spilling the Tea. Bye bye.